Hey, what's up, Raider Nation? So Max Crosby put out a rap song, and people are speculating that he might go to the Bay. We'll get into that on today's episode.
No, we won't. No, we're not. We're not talking about Max Crosby rap songs. No, I'm kidding. We will get into that. But we'll also talk about the Raiders coaching staff, and Klint Kubiak seems like he's not really having issues putting this bad boy together. We'll do that on the Squad Show.
We're just a couple days away from the NFL Combine starting, and is it all about Fernando Mendoza, or should we be paying attention to other things? That's coming up.
Raider Nation, it's time. This is the Raiders Squad. Everything Las Vegas Raiders every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Death Star in the desert. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Commitment to excellence starts here. The Raiders Squad Show starts now.
Hey, what's up, Raider Nation? Remember, if you like the content, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're listening to this on the audio side, we do appreciate you as well. Give us a 5-star, leave a rate and review. That always helps the channel grow. And with me saying that, the channel has continued to grow. The show has continued to grow. So we thank you so much for all your support, because we wouldn't be able to do this without your support, Raider Nation. So thank you so much. Coming up in that final segment, not linked today, but we got a very special guest in the building, Amber Theoharis, who of course has been on with the fellas before. But in that final segment, Amber and Q are going to be taking some of your questions and comments. So we'll do that in the fourth segment. So get your questions into the chat if you're watching this on YouTube right now. Also, if you have a question for the show and you're listening to this on the audio side, you can always hit us up on another time. Maybe get it on YouTube, drop a comment, and we may be able to get to it on another episode. So coming up on this episode, I mentioned that Max Crosby rap song. We're going to talk about it a little bit, even though there's been a lot of attention on Max. We're also going to get into the Combine, which is next week. So things are starting to move. We are going to get into some comments made by a very known Raider hater, I guess you could say. That's what Raider Nation's saying. But also, we're going to have to talk about all the coaching moves that were kind of made. I'm going to read a list off because the Raiders continue to name coaches to their staff. So Ronnell Williams, Linebackers Coach. He's one of the younger coaches in the NFL, 34 years old, entered the NFL as the Chicago Bears defensive quality coach as well. And he has ties to Vic Fangio's defensive system. So that is huge. And we're going to talk a little bit about the defensive identity that the Raiders are putting together, with obviously Robbie Leonard at the head of that. Travis Smith, defensive line coach, Al Holcomb, senior defensive assistant, Zach Azzanni, wide receivers coach. I've read a lot of good things about him. Matt Robinson named safeties coach. And this hasn't actually been official yet, but Jordan Traylor, they're actually showing interest in him to be the quarterback coach. So just to name a few, but Q, will go with you first. And just in terms of everything that you heard, the coaches that they've added, what are your thoughts on the team that they've put together for the coaching staff?
I just think it's a good blend of young guys and then experienced guys, right? I mean, when you're looking at guys like Al Holcomb, he's been around for a while. He's got over 30 years of experience. So that's going to help out Robbie Leonard. And it's funny, there's a nice little trail of, the two paths, how they cross. I saw Mike Garafolo from the NFL Network put out a tweet about Robbie Leonard actually took Al Holcomb's spot in New York with the Giants when Holcomb decided to take a job with the Carolina Panthers. And so anyway, so they all kind of intertwine, and now he's back as a senior defensive assistant. That to me is a big deal because he can help out Robbie Leonard with what he doesn't know. Robbie Leonard, I think, is a guy who a lot of people are underestimating him as the defensive coordinator, a guy that they look at and say, oh, they just hired him to try to appease Max. And I don't think that that's the case. Amber knows. She's talked to Robbie. He's a guy that's got a lot of respect around the building. I think he's going to do some really good things. But the cool thing is to see the blend, to see guys that have experience and see the guys that, are still trying to kind of get their feet wet when it comes to different coordinator positions. I think it's really good experience and like I said, youth as well at those positions, and should help them be more cohesive and be on the same page. So I really like what I'm seeing so far from this coaching staff.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm going to be honest. We could sit here and talk all we want about every single position coach and what we know about them and what they did somewhere else, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whatsoever what their resume is. Can you try to predict what they might do based on the past? Absolutely. That's what Klint Kubiak's doing. Right. He's banking that they can bring what they did. He liked something they did somewhere else and came here. the reality is Rob Leonard's never schemed a defense, right? Like we've never seen it. We don't know what it looks like. Andrew Janocko, we don't, Sam Darnold looked great. Do we know what his offense looks like? Do the Raiders have Kenneth Walker? No. Do they have Jackson Smith and Jigma? No. So we don't know. The hope is that you trust in Klint Kubiak and John Spytek and Tom Brady and Mark Davis trusted in Klint Kubiak. So it's a lot of trust, right? You're going on people's expertise and what they think will work. We got to see it work together. And I think we'll start to get a feel for predicting what some of these schemes will look like, what the offense might look like, but we won't know any of that. They got $100 million in the draft. I mean, in free agency, they got 10 picks? Is it 10 or 11 picks?
10 right
picks
now. Right now,
10 picks in the draft, right? It's February 19th. It's so much fun to sit here. This is why we have jobs. Nobody knows anything. This team's going to look completely different. The roster is going to look completely different. Look at the Patriots this time last year versus the Super Bowl. It was two different teams. So I'm hoping that's what the Raiders are going to look like.
Yeah, that's the reality of it. Amber's absolutely right. I mean, the coaches, they have the resumes, they've got the skins on the wall, they've been coaching for this long, whatever the case may be. Ronnell comes over from Philadelphia. I think that's great. But at the end of the day, is the personnel coming with you? No. Yeah. Right. So the Raiders have to put the personnel in place to be able to allow these coaches to do what they do. So that's always going to be the biggest key is who are you coaching up? Who's out there in the lines, in the trenches, who's on the roster to try to give this team an opportunity.
Yeah. And, Amber kind of said it, like they're putting together a staff as well, because, when you think about Janocko, he doesn't have a lot of experience being an OC. Right. And then you take a look at someone like Robbie Leonard. He's never been a DC before. So when you take a look at that and you think about the experience behind that, they've also added a bunch of coaches with a lot of experience. And when you think about how they're trying to navigate the younger coaches with adding some veteran pieces, Amber, how important do you think that is when you're assembling a coaching staff?
I think it's a tough balance, right? Because right now you've got a second-year GM, a second-year owner, minority owner, a first-year head coach, a first-year offensive coordinator, a first-year defensive coordinator. You've got your star players are a third-year tight end and a second-year running back. And the only person that has a lot of experience is Max Crosby, right? I mean, it's a very young, inexperienced team. And yes, can you bring in a veteran offensive line coach, a veteran defensive backs, whatever, veteran? That helps, but they're a position coach. They're not the one that is it's up to you as the new offensive or defensive coordinator to create an entire identity around your unit. So, I mean, in theory, yeah, like if I'm doing a show I was hired to create this amazing Emmy Award winning show, right? That's the expectation on me. But I was always with Q and he always made me look good. Right. Like Q was Jackson Smith and Jigma. Like I could just anybody, he's going to make me look good. All of a sudden I'm on my own. I'm going to have my own ideas. It doesn't matter if I bring Q with me to help consult. In the end, he doesn't have a say in what I do. So again, I've been doing this so long. Q and you and I say this, you've been doing it so long. Everything's great in theory. Let's see it in practice. Let me remind you that people point to a team like, the Patriots or the Bears or, Mike Vrabel had put together what they went to the AFC Championship with Vrabel, right? And the Tennessee Titans. Yep. It's not like he came out of nowhere and was a first-year head coach. I think it's tough. Ben Johnson was. He found success doing that. He also had some veterans around him. Is there a formula? I don't know, because a lot of people have won a lot of different ways. Mike McDonald surrounded himself in different ways, and he went to the Super Bowl in just his second year. So like anything, there's a lot of ways to skin a cat. Let's see if the Raiders can find that magical formula.
Yeah, that's going to be the biggest key. Again, I mean, you hit it on the head, and that's what I guess that's the biggest question. How is it going to be put together? Robbie Leonard, again, is a guy that a lot of folks have respect for. He's a guy that the Raiders have blocked multiple times from being interviewed by other organizations. So obviously they have a lot of respect for him. But again, until you actually see it, you don't know. I could tell you how cool he is and how great of a guy he is.
Love the guy. We rode together in our Ford commercial. He was fantastic.
I mean, he's a fiery coach. This is the thing that I look for. Klint Kubiak is a guy that's a quiet dude, right? So how do you balance that out? Well, Robbie Leonard's not quiet, right? Robbie Leonard's a guy very respectful, but he'll get after it, right? You look at a guy like Joe DeCamillis, who's coming in as special teams coordinator with all the experience he has. He's a fiery guy. He's going to get after it. Azzanni, he's a fiery guy. He's going to get after it. So it's the balance that you're looking for, right? If you're going to have the leadership that's going to be quiet and calm and kind of, laid back and reserved, well, you got to have somebody that's going to bring the juice and bring the energy. And a lot of times, and Amber, covering the league as long as you have, a lot of times that's the strength and conditioning coach, or that's, there's always like a coach on there that brings the extra fire and extra juice. Well, a guy like Robbie Leonard will be able to do that. I'm assuming he's going to be on the sideline and just, kind of interacting with the players. I think the other good thing about this is when you look at a roster that has 25 free agents like the Raiders do, a guy like Robbie Leonard, who's already been on the roster, and Joe Woods as well, who's the passing game coordinator, he stayed on. They know what a lot of these players could already do. And so they know what they have and they know what they don't have, which is more important. So that's how these guys start to try to put the pieces together. Next week, Amber, you'll be in Indy. I'll be in Indy scouting combine. This is when the roster starts getting put together.
Yeah. And,
oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Amber. No, go ahead, Amber. Go ahead.
John Spytek said something really interesting at the press conference when he was on our set with the Silver and Black Productions. And he basically said, like, this is not a collection of talent, right? Like, I can tell you a bunch of great players. The art in it is, he said, it's building a team. You look at the way Seattle Seahawks built a team. It wasn't with the first number 1 overall pick at quarterback. It was completely, it was bringing in, it was making tough decisions like getting rid of DK Metcalf, and believing that JSN could be the number 1. There's a lot, it's a craft. And I think that John Spytek has a lot of opportunity with so many draft picks and so much money. If this roster looks anything like last year, then I think they've failed going into the season.
Facts. Agreed.
Yeah. And you mentioned John Spytek, and I wanted to kind of get into this because obviously they were gunning for Klint Kubiak. And I think everyone kind of speculated that he was the guy that they wanted to bring in. Now, when they promoted Robbie Leonard, do you feel like that was also Klint Kubiak being like, we should promote Robbie Leonard? Or do you think that was more of a Spytek decision? Because we know last year what happened was, like, everyone, this wasn't Pete Carroll's staff. Essentially, like, Pete Carroll didn't hire all those guys. It was a little bit of, Spytek and Tom Brady. And then there was like all the drama of who brought in who. So with this, do you think Robbie Leonard's promotion was more of a Spytek decision, Q?
I think it's a collaboration. That's kind of how I look at this whole thing. And I think this is why this has a chance to work. Again, I had to say it has a chance because we don't know. As Amber said, it's February 19th. We don't know anything.
We're so old and tainted. We're like, show me what it is.
Right. It's the reality of it. But the thing to me, what stood out to me about the presser, and Amber was there as well, is that this was the Spytek and it was the Klint Kubiak show. Mark Davis wasn't even on the stage. Mark Davis was in the back of the room, sitting back there with a couple other guys that are very high up in the organization, and watched and observed and sat there with a smile. Will Kiss, he's in charge of PR. He introduced Spytek and then took it from there. Like, this is, to me, it feels like it's truly now the Spytek show. And the statement that Mark Davis put out when Pete Carroll got fired was the fact that it's going to be Spytek and Tom Brady leading football operations moving forward. And that showed and that reflected on the day that they had the press conference where John Spytek stood up there and took questions, and Klint Kubiak fielded questions. And they seemed like that they were a one cohesive unit following the presser when they're out in the indoor and they're, going through the car wash of different media outlets. Right. You see Spytek and you see Kubiak interacting with each other, talking with each other, just kind of chopping it up. It feels like, and again, this doesn't mean that they're going to be a successful team. It feels like that they're attacking this thing together.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that, Amber?
I mean, my initial answer to your question, do you think this was a Spytek decision? My gut was, God, I hope not. I mean,
right.
Why would you go down that path again of we're going to hire put our faith in a head coach, but we're not going to let him fill out his staff. We're not going to let him make major decisions. And I don't think that's what Q's saying at all. Q is saying that Klint Kubiak probably knew he wanted Rob Leonard, and I'm sure he had to become more familiar with him in the short time he had to. But that option was presented by SpyTech. And I really just hope that it wasn't like, here's your guy, you have to take him, because you're really just pulling, you're pulling his legs out from under him really early. You can't say, we want you to be the next head coach. We want you to be the John Harbaugh or the Mike Tomlin of the Raiders and be here, 18, 19 years. But we're not going to let you right off the bat make major decisions like coordinator positions. So I really hope it was collaborative in the sense that they presented it to him and he had to say whether he believed that was what was. Ultimately, he has to make decisions that are going to help him succeed. Like why if Q sucks as a host and I got to bring him on my Emmy Award-winning show, I'm gonna be mad about that just because Shantelle owns the network. I'm gonna be like, but you want my success depends on decisions that you're making. Then you're not giving me any power. So I gotta hope not. I hope Klint wanted him.
The funny thing is, Amber, and you were on my radio show yesterday, and you said something that I thought was a big point that probably just kind of a lot of people might not have picked up on. But you had mentioned that after you talked to Klint Kubiak after his presser, you felt like he didn't really want to go to Seattle and go and have that parade. He really wanted to get to work. And I think that that's a big deal, that he's so, as a matter of fact, and he's not a guy that's going to capture the room. He's not going to go up front and get in front of the microphone and get in front of the crowd and just wow you and make you ready to jump up and run through a wall for him. He's not going to do that, but he's about ball. And he wants to talk ball, and he wants to get after it, and he wants to work. And to me, I picked up that same sense that he was ready to work. Now, he went to Seattle. He went through the parade. That was great. But he hustled back, and he got to work immediately. And you're starting to see with all these hires that are coming through, that's what he's doing. He's working his tail off to get everything in place. And that's why I feel like him and John SpyTech are definitely on the same page, and this is not a bunch of arranged marriages like we saw last season.
Well, he probably took, the reason why I felt like he didn't want to go to the parade is that he knows he had a very short time to make these hires. He had the shortest time in the NFL of all the 10 positions. He had the shortest time to try to fill out his staff. You have to remember, a lot of people maybe he was interested in were already hired by other people. So it was, I think it was good that the Raiders waited in the sense they got exactly who they wanted. And I think this was a great hire. I do. I think to me, I think this is going to be a great hire, but he was a little behind the ball in the sense that he had to speed up his research. And so maybe that does help a Rob Leonard, right? Like there was other defensive coordinators out there before now they're all hired. And I think maybe that made sense, but yeah, I'm about to get a hip replacement. Okay. I'm about to get a hip replacement March 2nd. I'm old. I'm an athlete. It's gone. So I had, when you talk about Klint Kubiak, stick with me here. You talk about Klint Kubiak. Look at you. He's like, what is she doing?
I love Amber. No, I love Amber. I just want to give you
100.
I just want to give you a virtual hug right now.
Keeps it 100. But I'm going somewhere here. When you say Klint Kubiak isn't going to win a room, right? I don't care.
Right.
Hero can win a room. Josh McDaniels won a room. AP won a room. My God, right?
Yep.
I don't care. I want the results. And I'm an analogy person. So my hip replacement, I was talking to a couple surgeons, and then I was talking to a couple of physical therapy people. I said, which surgeon should I use? He said, well, Dr. Yun is really, he's going to give you the best results. He's surgically the best surgeon, but his bedside manner, he's not really great. He doesn't really, I go, I want him.
Right.
I want the best one with the best results. I want Klint Kubiak. I don't care. He doesn't make me feel warm and fuzzy inside. In the end, you have a major job to do. You have to replace my hip. You have to win in the NFL. I want you to be surgical. I want you to be cold if you have to be, and I want you to be the best at what you do. And that's why I'm not mad at all about Klint Kubiak not being charismatic. Like, I love that he's about ball. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, no, it's great. After he did the whole car wash at his presser, he, you could tell that he was exhausted from everything that had gone on for like 48 hours. But I got him for 1 minute and 30 seconds, Amber. I promise you, that's all it was. And I just asked him straight up just about the zone blocking scheme. And it's almost like he just kind of perked up in his seat, like, he wants to talk about football. Let's do it. So I kind of realized that at that point, if you talk ball with Klint Kubiak, he's going to be ready to go. I mean, that's what he's all about. And I'm with you. And I thought that analogy was fantastic. So I don't know.
I was going somewhere.
It was great. At some point, I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that somehow. I don't know when, but I'm going to use it. promise you, I'll be like, man, my great friend Amber Theoharis, the professor, she broke it down like this, and that was fantastic. I promise you, I'm gonna use it.
Yeah, like I don't care if I ever see that surgeon again, as long as like we're good after that surgery and that hip, that titanium hip is money. Like we don't got to be friends. We don't have to talk. I just want you to be the best at what you are. And I got a question for you, Q. What did he say about the run blocking scheme?
Well, he said that, of course, you've got to have athletic offensive linemen. He pointed out the center position and said how he's got to have it between the ears. He's got to be smart. Yeah. And then he also talked about they've got to be athletic, but they've also got to be, big enough, strong enough to be able to pass pro, right? I mean, it can't be just super thin and light in the backside to not be able to block. But it was just, and then repetition, because that's a scheme that has never really worked for the Raiders. Every time it's tried to be implemented, he's just this repetition. You have to do that. And so they've got to get a guy that can coach it up, teach it up, and get these guys in the right position. If you go back and look at the Raiders offensive line from last year, as much as we dog them and say that they didn't do very well, they also don't feel like they were coached up very well either. Right. I mean, Marshall Newhouse used to, play for the Raiders. And he told me on Radio Row when we were in San Francisco at the Moscone Center together, he said, Q, I looked at all the film. I didn't know what they were trying to accomplish sometimes. I don't know what they were trying to accomplish. He's like, I don't know what they were actually being told to do. So that was part of it. So as bad as the offensive line was last year, a lot of it had to do with personnel. A lot of it also had to do with coaching and teaching.
Yeah, and we kind of heard that a lot from Raider Nation about how they weren't kind of happy with how the O-line was coached up, but also coming up on the other side, we're going to talk a little bit about Fernando Mendoza, because he's going to need those guys on the O-line, and most importantly, we want Amber to have a good hip replacement too. So everyone check on Amber after she gets her hip replacement, because now we know she's going to the best. So you're going to be in great form, Amber, when the season starts next season. And
you don't even know. 2.0, baby. Get that oil out.
Yeah. She'll be all ready to host those Raiders shows when she gets that hip replacement. But on the other side, we're going to talk a little bit about Fernando Mendoza, and Colin Cowherd made some comments. So we're going to listen to what he said. That's on the other side. Keep it locked here on the Locked On Network. You're watching or listening to the Raiders Squad Show. All right, it's time to hear from one of our sponsors. Welcome to the 5-Hour Energy Flavor Draft. We're looking at every aspect of the draft to let you know which tasty flavors are the best and which might just be sleepers. So what I love about 5-Hour Energy actually is the shots give you a boost without zero sugar. And listen, I'm a grape girl. I like anything with grape, and 5-Hour Energy has a great flavor, which I didn't even know that they had so many flavors. They got confetti craze. Confetti cake is also one of my favorites, but I'm going to stick with grape. But if you like fruity rainbow or con candy as well, those are also flavors. So if you don't like the OG taste of 5-Hour Energy, they got a bunch of flavors. So find your new favorite flavor of 5-Hour Energy shots, available online at 5hourenergy.com or Amazon. Welcome back, Raider Nation. Remember, if you like the content, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Also, in that final segment, that fourth and final segment, Amber and Q are going to be taking some of your questions and comments. So please drop them in the chat if you are watching this on YouTube. We're also going to be talking a little bit about the Combine and Max Crosby's new rap song that a lot of people are talking about, because he dropped some bars on there that has people thinking he's going to the Bay. But a lot of people are making comments in terms of obviously the draft and Fernando Mendoza. Like, that's probably been one of the biggest things, even just before the season ended, when people were thinking the Raiders got to go for Fernando Mendoza. So Colin Cowherd made some comments on the herd, and we'll take a listen to that, and then we'll get Amber and Q's thoughts after.
No, I love Fernando Mendoza, who will be the #1 pick of the Raiders. And we did this when Andrew Luck came out, and I do not think Mendoza's as good as Andrew Luck or John Elway as a prospect, or Caleb Williams. He's not that good, but I think he's really good. I think he's better than, all the scouts are telling me he's stiff and he's not very athletic. And I'm like, I watched him. I got the numbers right in front of me against Ohio State, Bama, Oregon, and Miami. He was highly efficient, 9 TDs, 1 pick, and moved very well in the Miami game. I think he's great. But I'm not rigid. I'm going to listen to criticisms. I just don't buy any of them so far until today. This one feels legitimate. There's an NFL analyst who calls something pressure to sack rate. And how many negative plays do you have? How long do you hold the ball? And if you look at last year in the NFL, who had a really bad or really high pressure to sack rate, it was Geno Smith, J.J. McCarthy, and Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. Okay. And he has Mendoza's pressure to sack rate the same as Justin Fields. And what have we said about Justin Fields? He doesn't see the field very well, holds the ball too long. Now, Justin Fields is hyper athletic, and he still has negative plays. So I look at Caleb Williams, his first year, hit all sorts of sacks and negative plays. Why would that be? Because his coach stunk. So I don't worry about Fernando Mendoza. I worry about the Raiders as his parent in this league. Bad O-line. Even if Klint Kubiak's a good coach, he'll be probably the fourth best coach in his division. Ownership is impulsive and ridiculously impatient. I don't have a Mendoza issue. I have a Mendoza to the Raiders issue. And you just have to remember how this works. Joe Burrow's unbelievable. He may be the best third and fourth down quarterback we've had in a decade. He can't make the playoffs because of the parent. The kid is limited. You've all seen this before when you were a kid growing up and you had a buddy and you just knew his parents were a mess. The kid ends up being a mess. No matter how hopeful and optimistic you are about a kid, the parents control a lot, 0 to 21. Mendoza, and I would admit this, is not even an Andrew Luck athlete.
All right. So those were a lot of thoughts from Colin, right? And Q looks like he's happy that's over with. But I wanted to play a lot of it because sometimes a quote can be taken out of context. So I wanted everyone to kind of hear what he was trying to say there. So he thinks that Mendoza is pretty much going to a team in an organization that is an absolute tire fire. Essentially, that's what he's saying. And he doesn't believe that they're going to put pieces around him where he can be successful. So Q, you're already over the audio. So I'm going to go with you first. And then we'll get Amber to keep it 100 as she usually does. So Q, what are your thoughts on all of that?
No S, right? Of course, they're picking number 1 overall for a reason, right? They're not the greatest show on turf. They're not a well-oiled machine, or they wouldn't be picking number 1 overall, right? This is the opportunity that the team has. Of course, it doesn't take a genius to say that they've got some issues. Absolutely, I think we all know that. But Joe Burrow, he's like, they can't make it to the playoffs. Yeah, he can. He made it to the Super Bowl.
Thank you. I was like, wait a minute.
What are we talking about, right? And look,
that's with my knowledge. I was like, I think he went to a Super Bowl.
He also had a guy on his show, and Jason McIntyre yesterday, who said Mike Evans has never been to the Super Bowl either, and he needs to go to a Super Bowl, champion or a team that has a chance to win a championship. And he won a Super Bowl in Tampa Bay. So again, it's just no team ever that picked number 1 overall was in a good position as a team. But that's when you get the quarterback to get yourself an opportunity. When the Panthers got Cam Newton, guess what? They were a train wreck. He ended up becoming a league MVP, took them to the Super Bowl, right? I know they didn't win, but they went there, right? When the Bengals got Joe Burrow number 1 overall, they were a train wreck. Some would say they still have train wreck tendencies, but they went to the Super Bowl. Right, the Bears, they had the number 1 overall pick twice, once because of them and once because of the Carolina Panthers. Bryce Young, right? No kidding, right? The Commanders, they weren't very good. That's why they got Jaden Daniels number 2. Guess what? He turned things around. The team that was just in the Super Bowl, guess what? They weren't good. No S. You're not telling us anything we don't already know. The Patriots turned things around with Drake May. This is your opportunity. That's why you're picking at number 1. That's why when the draft is actually done correctly, it's actually really helpful if you do it correctly as a team. But he's not telling us anything that we don't already know. I don't have a Raider. I have a Raider problem. Okay, well, all right. Well, they obviously have a problem too. That's why they're in the position they're in. And now they're trying to turn things around. Mendoza's a really good quarterback. Is he going to be a really good quarterback in the league? Well, no, we'll find out, right? We don't know until we know. And it's up to the Raiders to go ahead and put that all together. But, Colin Cowherd's saying nothing. And tomorrow he'll say something different. And he'll still be about nothing. So, yeah, I'm kind of over it. I don't know.
I'm a fan of Colin Cowherd. I know him. I think he's a great guy. I really like his opinions a lot of the time. Sometimes I think he just
talks.
Doesn't even believe what he's saying. Yeah. But I have to defend him a little bit, both sides. Of course, hearing something somebody just destroy the Raiders organization hurt you because you're in the organization. You know, I am, and I'm with Silver and Black Productions, and I love the Raiders. And I know people listening to Locked On Raiders right now love the Raiders. So it like hurts their soul and they feel like, oh, he's a hater. Is he lying? Are there lies told? No. I mean, the Raiders aren't good. They're the worst team in the NFL, so they have the number one pick. So it hurts to hear the truth, and you're like, okay, you don't have to bury us in it. But sometimes the truth, you still believe in your organization. I don't think Tom Brady's a bad parent. I think he's the greatest of all time, right? Like when he's talking about, the kid and the parent analogy. Well, you have the GOAT. Like, we don't know what kind of a owner he is, but I don't think you can take the liberty of calling Tom Brady, dysfunctional or a bad parent or a bad football whatever he's implying. So that was the one. And then the fact about Joe Burrow not ever going to the playoffs was odd. But I think you have to be real with yourself, right? And if the people got upset with that, then you're not real with where the Raiders are right now. The Raiders are at the bottom of the NFL right now. There's hope. Right. And
I don't think he said anything that we don't already know, though.
No, he didn't say anything. That's what I said. There's zero lies told. I dropped my daughter off at school this morning. She made the track team, right? Nice. My daughter is not flight of foot. Okay. She's just not. She's a great athlete. I think she made the track team because she's on the football and the soccer team. She said, Mom, you're going to come to my first meet. I said, I ran track. I said, what event are you at? Like, what are they? Are they putting you on the 100? They putting you on the 4x100? I don't think so. She goes, no, they put me on long jump. So that's because you couldn't run, right? So they put you on. I know you can't long jump. So I told her, I said, I'm going to go and I'm going to wear a hat because we look exactly alike. And I don't want people to know you're my kid until I see that first long jump. I'm going to act like you're not if you do what I think you're going to. That's called being real with who you are. Do I love her? Do I have hope in her? Do I think that under the right coach and with the right pieces around her, she can be better? No, but right now she's the Raiders. I don't think she can jump right now. I haven't seen it yet. Right. So if somebody said to me, said something bad about my daughter, I'd be like, you're probably right. Like, you're telling me, I'd be hurt. And that's how I feel about this Raiders thing with Colin Cowherd saying something about, I'm hurt, man. That's my baby. That's my Raiders. But is he lying? No. Let's see you do the long jump. Let's see your first jump. Do what you do. And then I'll go to bat for you. And then I'll go after Colin Cowherd and tell him how wrong he was. But he's not wrong.
Right. No, and I can agree with that. But, I've heard all this, the Raiders they need to trade back. They need to trade the pick because they're not in position to go and get the quarterback. No team is. Again, no team is in position when they're picking number one overall. Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing. The Patriots weren't in position when they took Drake May. They weren't, but they took him because the quarterback was there, and then they built around him. Again, I go back.
You can't win without one. You can't win in the NFL without a quarterback. So why would you pass on a chance to get a quarterback if you believe he's your generational talent?
It just feels like to me that everyone is making it a bigger deal because it's the Raiders at number one as opposed to, I don't know, the Titans at number one. Did we hear all this conversation about, well, man, you know what? I like Cam Ward, but I don't like Cam Ward with the Titans. No. Nobody gave a rip that Cam Ward was going to the Titans as
and they're more dysfunctional, I think. I mean, look at who they let go.
Exactly.
They let Mike Vrabel walk out the door. They let Rand Carthon there? They let him go. He built stuff with the 49ers. They're dysfunctional.
And you know what the Raiders did that was smart that nobody's giving them credit for? They didn't do what the Giants did. The Giants kept Brian Daboll there as the head coach. And then they brought in Jackson Dart, and then they fired him halfway through the season. They didn't do what the Tennessee Titans did. They kept Brian Callahan in there, and then they fired him halfway through the season. They didn't do what the Chicago Bears did. They kept their head coach, whatever their name was, Eberflus. They kept him in place, and then they fired him halfway through. You get the theme that I'm rocking with? They didn't do that. They said, you know what? Pete Carroll, you got a hell of a resume. We respect you. I'm a Pete Carroll guy. I respected the hell out of him. I hate that it didn't work out. Amber, I know you feel the same way. But they said, we're having a clean slate, and we're going to let this head coach work with this young quarterback, and we're going to build this thing together. There's not going to be a mid-season firing, and then we're going to ask the quarterback to learn a new system like these other teams are doing. You want to talk about dysfunction? That's dysfunction. At least the Raiders said, hey, we'll take that L, we'll take it, we'll clean it up, and we'll move forward. They did that. Not one swinging D is talking about that at all.
Yeah, Q, I like what you said. You brought up the point. One thing I did not like Colin Cowherd said was they have impatient owner or he's grossly impatient or whatever the word he was. I was like, you think that somebody argued to me that they should have been more patient with Josh McDaniels, or they should have been more patient with Antonio Pierce, or they should have been more patient with even Coach Carroll. Like, no, if you're going to argue anything, argue that they made bad decisions.
Right.
I like that they owned them and weren't patient and didn't say, I'm just going to give them another year, because then we'd be another year behind right now.
Yeah.
I actually think that was inaccurate.
Yeah. My only thing was, I feel like with Colin's take, I'm just kind of surprised at the fact that people think that we all know that the Raiders have to address the O-line. That's the number one thing. If they draft a quarterback, they have to address the O-line. But my whole thing is that, why do people think that they won't in the offseason when everyone's saying, especially if you go and get Klint Kubiak, right? Because then you're saying that Klint Kubiak's not going to have a lot of say and that he doesn't know to address the O-line. They know they have to fix the O-line. And also, Q made a great point too, that they weren't saying this about the Titans when they're about to pick Cam Ward. I think if the Jets had the number 1 overall pick, or the Giants had the number 1 overall pick, people would not be saying this. But I think it's because it's the Raiders, all these conversations are being made. But in terms of the O-line, do either of you think, and Amber, we'll go with you first, that they are going to really address and invest in this O-line in the offseason, whether that's the draft or free agency?
Do I think they will? Do I think they're setting out going, we need to address the offense? Yes. I mean, that's but they did that last year too. And I can remember seeing Q at camp and just thinking like, what's different? I mean, when the O-line lined up, it was like Groundhog Day. It was like the same people moved around, trying different. It was bizarre. So in theory, are they setting off? Yes. I mean, look, Klint Kubiak said to Q that the center position is so important. And we all know that. Like, we know that. Do they all work together to be competitive? I mean, you're not going out and getting the center for the Ravens without spending a lot of money and being aggressive and getting and throwing cash at them. Because don't you think the Ravens are going to do that? So it's like, what you what you want to do? One thing I've learned in life, there's a lot, like, what you want to do, what you intend to do, and what you're able to have the fortitude to execute and the capacity to execute are two very different things. So are we going to find that out? Absolutely. We'll know in training camp. We see who lines up on that line.
Right. Yeah. And the thing is, and this is what I'm hoping for. And obviously we won't know until, like you said, training camp, but we actually get to see it with our own eyes, that there's not a yo-yo and there's not a, well, today you're going to play this position and today you're going to be a first stringer. Tomorrow you're going to be of the second team. Next thing you're like, just decide who your 5 are going to be, who you feel most confident in, and let them out there and start getting your repetitions. Because again, as Klint Kubiak told me, the zone blocking scheme, to execute it correctly, it's going to take repetition. And I'll challenge anyone to do their homework. Go back and look at Seattle. Their run game didn't really get clicking until the second half of the season. Now, they stayed consistently running the ball. They consistently tried to do it. But that zone blocking scheme that they were executing there in Seattle wasn't really clicking until the second half of the season, because it takes repetition. It's going to take time for them to get this down. The zone blocking scheme, you're not blocking a man. You're going to an area. Right. And again, go back and do your research. It has never really worked any time that the Raiders have tried to implement it. That's why I've always been a fan of the power blocking scheme, the man blocking scheme. But one, the CBA doesn't really allow guys to block that way. And the Kubiaks, similar to the Shanahans, all come from the same tree, and they're going to run that system. And it's been very successful if it's executed correctly, which is just like anything in football. You execute it correctly, it's a thing of beauty. If not, you're a 3-win team. It's just that's serious. So they've got to decide. They don't need to bounce back and forth with who Jay Beachay is and who he's not this year, right? Like, make a decision, move forward. And we'll know a lot in free agency, because that's coming up pretty quickly. If they back up the Brinks truck for Tyler Linderbaum and somehow they're able to land him, he's the starting center.
Yeah.
Right. And the conversation could end right there. And then you move forward. Who's your tackles? Who's your guards? What are you going to do? And how are you going to work as a unit? Because that O-line, I could be a great individual host, but it's offensive line is not an individual host job, right? That's a unit. You have to move together. Me and Amber have to move our left leg and our right legs at the same time, right? We got to know exactly what we're doing. Bada boom, bada bing. Like, she can't go one direction, I go the other direction. Look, I go on vacation once a year, right? I love to tell everyone this. I go to Hawaii for 1 week every year, and that's my getaway, get my mind back and everything. I always sit out on the balcony and just look at the ocean, and it's absolutely nothing going on. But what I noticed last year was I saw these people out there competing in a rowing event. And what stood out to me is that they all were in sync with each other. They were not rowing one direction and another direction. If not, they're not going anywhere, right? Mm-hmm. It was a thing of beauty. I took a video of it. Like, I have it in my phone so I can every once in a while get my mind right. Like, you got to be on the same page. You got to be rowing in the same direction. You got to be in sync with each. And they were just like, boom, 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 boom. It was so timely. That's what it's going to have to be for this offensive line. They're going to have to be rowing in the right direction and the same direction at the same time, with the same intent. And they weren't doing that last year. That's how that offensive line is going to be successful in 2026.
Q, you may think of something because I did a little rowing. Like the coxswain, right? With that, do you know what that is? That position in the row? It's the person that's not rowing. Actually, it is the smallest person in the front, and they are usually the weakest. But they are the one that is keeping the rhythm. They are.
Oh, so they're the center.
They're the center. Thank you. They're the smartest. They're kind of the one that leads the whole. The Raiders have not had the coxswain in a long time. They have not had that. They have not had that Jason Kelsey, who is the mind, the soul of the line. Everybody thinks it's the tackles. Everybody thinks the left tackle, because they're the most expensive and hardest position, that they should be it. They should not. A good offensive line has a smart leader at the center position. And I think Klint Kubiak has alluded to that is going to be a big focus for him. And I don't know if that's JPJ, right? I think if you really think about it, he's a great athlete. Maybe he's a guard. That's not my decision to make.
Yeah. And I think we'll probably see JPJ at guard, but I'm not going to lie. This is the best rowing show on YouTube right now for sure. Yeah. We actually got the specific terms. So that's what happens. That's what happens when we got Amber on the show. She's going to give us the best analogies, right?
A little rowing in my day.
All right. Coming up on the other side, we're going to get into the combine, but also that Max Crosby rap song. So keep it locked here on the Locked On Network. You're watching or listening to the Raiders Squad Show. Workplace chaos, deadline stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is the job for Sponsored Jobs. Indeed, Sponsored Jobs helps you reach people who actually fit what you're looking for. Skills, experience, location, so you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's the stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is the job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And the listeners of the show will get $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. All right, Raider Nation, welcome back. Remember, if you like the content, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. The Locked On Network, the #1 sports podcasting network, and we do appreciate your continued support. So we'll quickly talk about Max Crosby, because this was like all over my timeline. People could not stop talking about it because it's connected to the Bay. So this was actually the bars that Max Crosby had dropped. So he said, quote, "What can I say? The boy get paid. Brand new crib in the Bay. We touched down in the Bay like Steph and Clay." When he said Bay, he meant like Vey, Vey. So I thought it was like Vallejo, but apparently he means Vegas. I don't know. But Niner fans off that were thinking he was going to the Bay. I will just say those are some terrible bars, but he's a great football player. So obviously the Niners would love to have him, and the Niner gang would love to have him as well. But Amber, your thoughts on Max's bars, #1, and then do you think this means anything?
It absolutely means nothing. Shout out to Max, right? Like, shout out for putting something out there that's creative, that means something to you. His music, I just had a conversation with Max about his music and how much it means to him. And I am a big creative myself. And anytime that you think you can do something that means something to you, don't let anybody kill your art, Chantelle. Don't let anybody kill your art.
He just had to have better bars. He just had, I'll support it. All right. He just had to have better bars. That's all
I
I'm
haven't
saying.
heard it. Like, honestly, I'm going to listen to it. I didn't know. We just spoke about music, which is interesting. One thing I know, he didn't write that yesterday. Like that's been written forever. Like it was probably written when he was in the Bay, like 6 years ago. So relax, Niners. I hope this goes viral, but not, like only sensational stuff does. I can promise you, he was not rapping about wanting to be a 49er. Like I would put my house, my kids' souls, everything on that. He was not rapping about that. So everybody chill out. He probably wrote those when he was back, living, in Oakland or, playing for the Raiders in Oakland, and let's all calm down. And congrats. Like he's been wanting and nervous to put that out, and I'm glad he did.
Yeah, it was funny as soon as that dropped, all of a sudden you saw a bunch of different 49er bloggers and, media writers. Oh man, he's coming to the Bay. And then first of all, they got it wrong because they thought he said Bay when he really said Vay. And so they didn't even really hear him correctly. And, it is what it is. It had a little auto tune on it. And I just thought, okay, cool. But look, Max knows what's going on. He knows that he's the center of attention. You turn on the TV, it's Max Crosby. You turn on the podcast, talking about Max Crosby. You turn on the radio, Max Crosby. It's like, it's all about Max right now. And so, at some point, all this will come to a head. Either he will or he won't, right? Either they'll all sit down and they'll make a decision and they'll talk about why he should stick around, and he'll give a decision on why he shouldn't or should, whatever the case may be. Like, it's really, there's nothing that you can say at this stage of the game. There's nothing that could be done. It's going to be a lot of speculation, and every single fan base that wants him there, whether they're in Detroit or Chicago or San Francisco or Dallas or Philadelphia, you insert team, they have someone. I mean, I can't tell you how many radio shows I've been on talking about Max Crosby, and I keep telling them, I don't think he's going anywhere. That's just my gut feeling. That's not insight. That's not any of that. That's just my gut feeling is I don't think he's going anywhere. And if he does, it's going to be a mutual decision by him and the organization to go and whatever's better for him and whatever's best for the organization moving forward. And that's really all that they could do at this stage of the game.
Yeah, Amber, do you think Max is going to stay as well? Like, do you think there's any truth to what's been being said around Max wanting to leave?
I think people are assuming wanting to win means wanting to leave, and that's lost in all this. Does he want to win? Yes. Does he want to leave? I don't think he would say, yeah, I want to leave. No, it's like your marriage. Did I want to leave? Like people didn't know, but I was tired of losing. Right. So I don't think he's there yet where I think he's still trying to work it out. Right. Like, hey, I would love for you. How many times does like somebody say their stuff? I would love for you to do this, this, and this, and then we can win together. Right. Like I would love to do that. You only leave once those things don't happen. I think he's still in the therapy session of like, okay, I do believe you can be Mike Vrabel. I do believe that, but you're a little hesitant going those therapy sessions, right? You're like, I don't know. I've asked you to do this before. I want to be here. Like, I want to stay. This is where my heart is. But, I think that's where I don't think he's like, oh, screw y'all. I want to leave. I don't think I think he wants to win as a Raider. His number one choice would be to take the Raiders to the Super Bowl. And It's not up to Max. It's not Max's choice. It's the Raiders organization that needs to step up and create a team that can win for him. Just like if you're the spouse that's messing up, it's your job to show up to that therapy and prove that you are going to be the person that you are telling this person you're going to be, right? And that you're going to win together. So I think people have it so twisted when they say he wants out. No, he just wants to win. He wants to win here. What are the Raiders going to do to help him do that? If it continues next year, I don't know if I would stay either. Now he has to be traded, right? Like he can demand a trade. So it's not like he doesn't. People forget that too. The technicality. He doesn't have a say.
He's not a free agent. It's not like it's not like he can just bounce because like this ain't it. I'm going to go somewhere else. Now, I mean, like he doesn't have control over that. The Raiders at the end of the day could say, hey, guess what? He ain't going nowhere.
Yeah. Thanks for your presentation and your feelings.
What Cleveland said. That's what Cleveland said to Myles Garrett. He was like, he told everybody who would listen, including me, on Radio Row last year in New Orleans, I'm out. I don't care about no money. Cleveland can't win. I want to win. I'll get paid here, there, and the other. I'm not playing in Cleveland no more. He told everybody. He told the dude walking by with a little portable microphone, I'm not playing in Cleveland. And you know what happened? They're like, hey, dog, you're not going anywhere, and we're going to give you $40 million a year to stay. All right, cool. And then he went and broke the sack record.
Yep.
Yeah. And I'll say this, maybe he was also just giving a shout out to the Bay because the Raiders were in Oakland. So it's just like he could just be playing off that as well. But I think there will be a lot of talk about Max during the combine because everyone's going to be talking about this. And you will both be there at the combine and you'll be covering it. So I wanted to ask both of you, when it comes to the combine, how much weight do you actually put into it? And like, what do we want to see from Fernando Mendoza at the combine? Amber?
I don't put a lot of weight into the combine for the star players, right? Like, you know what you're getting. Like, he could run a 740, right? Like, and you still see on tape he's the Heisman Trophy winner. Like, so that doesn't change. I think where the combine carries a ton of weight is guys that were not on the radar and all of a sudden have a great combine, and then they move, from maybe not drafted or a 7th rounder up to a 3rd rounder. Right. And that can happen. And so I think that's where the combine is fascinating. The star players, half of them don't even work out. They wait for their pro days now. So I don't put a lot of weight in what Fernando Mendoza is going to do at all.
No, I don't put a lot of weight into what the combine does as far as workouts and 40s and benching and all that other stuff. I use the combine as just checking a box, confirming what I already believe that I know. Right. If I see Fernando Mendoza and I see in the game that he's sneaky athletic and then he runs a 40 and I say, yeah, he's sneaky athletic. He's not, he's not a statue back there. Right. But the problem is where you get into trouble, and teams have done that, including the Raiders for many years, where they would see a guy all of a sudden bench 35 times, 225. And they're like, wow, hold on. Right. But the film doesn't match that. Mm-hmm. So you could do a lot in the underwear Olympics and you could be a star. Like there's great quarterbacks when there's no pass rush and they're throwing on air. Like anyone could throw a good, but not anyone, but a lot of people could throw great passes and look good. But what does the film show? What did I see from him last year? All right, well, this guy threw a pretty deep ball. Well, how come he didn't throw a lot of deep balls in college? Let me go back and look, right? That's what the combine to me is for, is confirming what you believe that you already know. And if you see something that all of a sudden stands out to you and you're like, well, hold on. Right. Let me see about this, this John Ross guy, or let me see about this Darius Hayward Bay guy. Right. Should I be paying attention to him because of the 40 that he ran? Oh, well, actually, he was just, he was a guy that was like second team as far as actual pass catcher, wide receiver. Yeah, his speed is there, but his actual wide receiver skill set's not. Right. I mean, that's what you need to do. You need to confirm, go back and check. If someone pops to you. All right, well, let's go back and see what they did in this game. Oh, well, okay, I get it. Yeah, they're really fast, track fast, but they're not football fast. Or some guys are football fast and they're not track fast. I mean, that's just the reality of it. So that's kind of what you have to do there. But so many people fall in love with guys that have a hell of a performance at the combine. And I promise you, it's going to happen this year. It happens every year. There's somebody that all of a sudden is like, man, that 40 just made them a whole lot of money and they can't play the game. Simple.
Yeah, I heard my co-host on SiriusXM, my colleague Pat Kerwin, who was a GM and worked with scouts and stuff, and he said,
he's a genius, by the way.
Genius. He is. That's great. Genius. That's great. And he breaks it down and the way it works inside these draft rooms. And he was like, look, these scouts will fall in love at a combine with a 5th, 6th, 7th round prospect. And if he said he learned this from Bill Parcells, if nobody else is willing to stand up for that guy except for the one scout, Bill Parcells would stop and say, hold on, like, I want to hear what you have to say. And then he would listen to what he said about the combine, and then he'd go, show me the exact tape that explains what you saw in football, like that is going to translate to the NFL. And it was the scout's responsibility to not just be like, he's fast, he has this, he has that. He would have to have clips of him in college showing that and then make an argument of why it would translate. And I think that's a very foolproof system. Not just like, oh, I think he's great. Like, show me something. So I think what you said, Q, makes sense. You see things, you love it, but you then got to go into the football world and the football tape and show me how that works in football.
Some guys are great practice players, but they can't play worth the salt when the game happens. No, right? Yeah. Some guys, you can run all the drills, right? Hey, look, I'll tell you this. For me, practice was great. Practice, I knew I had nobody that had bad intentions for me during practice, right? Practice was always easy, right? It was the game that mattered, right? So you have to be able to, like I said, just go back and confirm. All right, this guy, he ran this drill, man, this DB, his hips were opening up, man. He was able to, okay, but can he do it with a wide receiver? Or is he just doing it in drills, right? I mean, and that's when you go to a guy like EA, and Amber, you work with EA very, very closely. What do you see from this guy? Oh, yeah, well, he's a technician during practice, but during the game, he doesn't trust himself. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't trust what he sees, right? Again, it's easy to run a drill when you have nobody that's defending you, or it's easy to throw a deep ball when you're not worried about some DN crushing you, right? And you're not having to have an offensive line protect you. So the quarterback, there's going to be some quarterback that's going to throw the ball, and everyone, man, what about that QB? I think that guy just made him some money, and he probably will, because some team will fall in love with him. But then you go back and look at the film, he's a little erratic in the pocket. He doesn't trust his offensive line, and he short arms the ball or whatever. There's always going to be that case, and so that's why you cannot take too much away from what you learned at the combine. It's really about the medicals. It's about the interviews, stuff like that. Like, I want to hear Fernando Mendoza at the podium. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I do like when they see how fast the guys can run. I do like that. I want to see a couple of like corners in this lane with a Colton Hood from who I think is a really good corner, or even like a Chris Johnson from San Diego State. But I will say this: you mentioned Hayward Bay. I was upset when they took him instead of Crabtree.
We all were, but you know why they didn't take Crabtree? Because he didn't run a 40. Remember, he was coming off the foot injury, and I don't remember what scout it was, but a scout said Al Davis is not taking Michael Crabtree, and said why? Because he didn't run the 40. Yeah. And guess what? They didn't take him.
Yeah, and I remember being thoroughly upset about that. But nonetheless, coming up on the other side, Amber and Q are going to be taking some of your questions and comments. So keep it locked here on the Locked On Network. You're listening or watching to the Raiders Squad Show.
Hey, it's Matt Derry from the Locked On Lions podcast. The people I love depend on me. If I'm gone, the financial responsibilities don't disappear. I didn't want my family figuring things out during the hardest moment of their lives. That's why I knew only one place to go. I chose life insurance through my friends at Ethos. Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy, 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month. I love the folks at Ethos. Protect your family with life insurance from Ethos now by going to ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. In as little as 10 minutes, you can get the free quote and up to $3 million in coverage at ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. That is ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Application times and rates may vary.
Welcome back, Raider Nation. If you like the content, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. It's time for questions and comments with Q and Amber. And of course, Amber comes on the show and we get a $2 donation right away. Like, not surprised here. And they just said it's better than Chip Kelly and Pat Graham. I think they were just talking about like the coaches that they hired last season. Of course, Chip was the OC and Pat Graham was the DC. I've always been a Pat Graham fan, but we'll skip to that. I want to get to this one because everyone keeps answering this, and Q has answered this, but Amber, I want to get your answer for this. What's the chances of Derek Carr coming back? You see, Q put his head back. Yeah, it's 0. All right, let's get to the next one. That was short and sweet. That was short. That was short and sweet. All right, let's get to this one. At Nose Oakland, will the Raiders get some black on black uniforms?
I doubt it.
Why can't they though? Like that would why aren't there color rush black on black? I just don't think that it's something that ownership has any interest in doing. I know that they do have color rush jerseys. Maybe they could do black on black instead of the all crispy whites that they had at that one point. I don't think the ownership has any interest in changing the traditional uniforms. I know that's something that I had been asked before, and I asked people that that know a lot better than me, and they said, "Nah, the Raiders will never change what their colors are." So, I mean, it kind of is what it is.
Right.
I would love it. I think it's kind of cool. I like the Ravens have the black on black, just with the purple numbers. I think that would look cool. I don't
think it would be bad for a one-off or something like that. But
color rush or something, like an alternative uniform. I think it'd be awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Let's get to DJ Raider AZ squad. Can we just select Mendoza now and put the Jets on the clock? Let's get him to Vegas sooner than later and start prepping him. Is that a thing that the Raiders can do? Just in terms of like if they know they're gonna draft him, just start kind of lining things up.
I mean, that they could if they wanted to, but they're not. They're going to go through the process. They're going to, vet everything that they have to, and they're going to take every phone call that they can. And somebody might hit them with some wow offer. I don't see that happening, but I mean, back in the day when the contract situations were different, remember they used to go ahead and start contract negotiations with these players when they had the number 1 overall pick. They don't have to do that stuff now. it's just a, formality. It's not a big deal. But I mean, yeah, they technically could if they really wanted to, but they're not going to.
Yeah, you have to wait. I agree. You have to wait because you could get some ridiculous offer that you have to entertain last minute.
All right, we'll go to this one really quickly. Last, Linda says, how many quarterbacks are the Raiders carrying into 2026, and will they trade Geno?
I don't think that Geno has a trade value, to be honest. I think you just eat that $18.5 million, tell him it's been real, give him some deuces on the way out the door, and he does the same thing. I mean, that was a bad marriage, right? I mean, Geno, the Raiders, and Raider Nation just never worked, and that's fine. Right. He can go on and do his own thing. And I think Aiden O'Connell, who's still under contract, will be there. I'm sure that the Raiders will probably pick up another quarterback. They'll probably have a 3-headed, quarterback room. Mendoza, Aiden O'Connell, and other, that's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, I would like to see a veteran added as the third quarterback, not Geno Smith. You can't keep the starter around to help a younger number one pick that took his place. Right. It's not going to work. So, but I would love to see, because Aiden O'Connell's not really going to help develop Mendoza. You need a veteran, I think, in that room, and that's going to be intentional. We'll probably most definitely see that.
Yeah, yep. I think Geno's days are done in the silver and black. But nonetheless, Raider Nation, thanks so much for hanging out with us today. We'll be back next week. And of course, Q will be at the Combine as well. So we're going to get a lot of Combine talk then. But thanks so much for hanging out with us. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll see you next week.
Google Coxon.